So the first is against oppression. Second, just reason to go and fight is self-defense. And the third is against tyranny. Now, there is a verse of the Holy Quran, and this is verse 75 of the chapter 9, which says, why should you not take up the jihad? So you see, jihad here means fighting. So jihad, you'll find jihad, the word in the Quran and Hadith many times, but the translation is not always fighting. Sometimes it is struggling through knowledge, sometimes it's struggling by conduct, but in this context it is fighting. So why should you not take up the jihad in God's cause and for the cause of the weak in Mecca, your own men, women and children who cry out, our Lord, rescue us from this town of oppressors. So this is the third reason, and tyranny. Now, I would like to point out here, is it justified that you go for jihad and you go into war with other nations just for the cause of implementing the Sharia, expanding Islam, for example, to make people force them to be a Muslim? This is definitely not a just cause in Quran and Sunnah, in Islamic law. There are no verses in the Holy Quran whatsoever. Actually, the Quran says, La ikraha fi din. The Quran says, there is a verse in the Quran which says, there is no compulsion in religion. So you can't force somebody to be a Muslim. It's their own choice. It's the choice given by Almighty God to a human being to choose whatever he wants, whether it is Islam, it's Christianity, it is being not even being atheist. It's up to him. Now, I would like to point out here a famous Orientalist, Dr. Laura, L-A-U-R-A, and now I can't really. It's Vasia, I think, V-A-C-C-E-I-A. Dr. Laura Vasia. She's a famous Orientalist. She writes in a book, a very famous book, An Interpretation of Islam. She writes that the words of the Prophet Muhammad show up the falsehood of the story that Islam imposed its religion by the sword. So when people say Islam is spread by the sword, Dr. Laura, a famous Orientalist, she says that it's false claim. And then she also gives the same verse of the Quran, which I told you, that the Quran says there is no compulsion in religion. The second thing, when you have a just cause, can you just go into war? Can any individual stand up and say, I have a just cause, I'm going into war? No. Legitimate authority and last resort is important. A legitimate authority and last resort. What does it mean? The physical or military jihad must be called by a Muslim authority as a last result for peace on earth. So not anybody can claim this is jihad, or this is jihad, or the fighting in such and such place is jihad. No, a Muslim authority. And what is a Muslim authority? A president or a head of a Muslim country. A president or a head of a Muslim country, after due consultations with the learned scholars, with the learned leadership, not only religious scholars, also secular scholars. So a Muslim, a head of a Muslim country, can, after due consultation with the learned people, he can then call for jihad, military jihad. And any individual or small organization cannot call for jihad. Like Al-Qaeda, for example, like any other. No, they don't have the authority in Islam. They don't have the authority. And this is why many Muslims, they don't stand up when they call for jihad. Many Muslims, they just ignore it, reject it. Why? Because they don't have the authority, first of all. Now I would like to discuss the directions of war. As I explained in the beginning, Islam is a code of life. which gives guidance for every aspect of human life. Islam doesn't only teaches you or guides you how to pray, or how to fast, or how to go for pilgrimage. Islam is a complete code of life. It tells you, it gives you guidance for every aspect of human life. Now, struggling, if a military struggle, jihad bil qital, is also part of human life sometimes. Islam gives guidance. Now, what is the guidance laid down by Islam? What are the directions during war? And what are the regulations during war? Can you just start killing anybody you see? Can you just start bombarding with your nuclear capability any country, whether it is Hiroshima or whether it is any other country? Or are there some directions laid down? Can you use any military method? Or are there some specific military methods? The first thing is discrimination. This is the first direction. And what does this, I would like to explain this now. One cannot discriminate because of personal reasons. So one cannot start killing one person and leave other people who are part of the same enemy because of personal reasons. I'll give an example here. The son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad, his name is Ali. Ali was fighting in a battlefield and was fighting against those who were oppressing them in self-defense. And one person, while he was about to kill him with his sword, that person spitted on the face of Ali out of hatred. Now Ali, while he had the sword in his hand, he could have killed that person, take his life. He just threw this sword away and left that person unharmed and went away. That person got surprised, stood up and said, Ali, if I would got the same chance, I would have killed you. Why didn't you kill me? He said, because we don't kill because of our personal reasons, because of our own emotional reasons. So now again, when people say we kill or we fight because our Muslim brother is there and there, or because our brother or because our sister was raped, or some people give emotional speeches. But the reality is, the conduct of a very important companion, actually, that he is the fourth caliph of Islam, is that you cannot fight, you cannot harm someone because of your own personal reasons, emotional reasons. So you can't discriminate because of personal reasons. Secondly, and this is quite important, the method and the force which is used. The Quran lays down, the Sharia, the Islamic law lays down, that you have to use minimum force. You have to use minimum force and method. Now the Quran says, fight in the cause of God against those who attack you, but be careful to maintain the limit. But be careful to maintain the limit. Since God does not love transgressors. This is the second surah and verse number 190. What does limit mean? By limit, it is meant that the force used must be limited to that which is the minimum adequate to restrain the evildoers who attack. So you have to use minimum force which is required to stop the evildoers. You can't use any force. You have to use minimum force which is required to stop those oppressors, stop the tyranny, or for self-defense. So you have to use only the minimum force, and something, whatever is above that limit, is prohibited. Now, and secondly, the method which is used when you are going into war is a method which is the common method used at that time. Like if there are machine guns, you use machine guns. If there are swords, you use swords. But the Prophet has specifically prohibited putting someone in fire. This is in Islam. When you are in war, you can't put someone in fire. This is classified as immoral. Now, the third thing is behavior with women and elders and children. Behavior with women, elders, and children. there is a hadith, and now there is a hadith, a saying of the Prophet and conduct of the Prophet, that once he found a woman who was killed during a battlefield, and she was not a Muslim. He became angry and furious, and he said, فَأَنْكَرَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ قَتَلَ النِّسَاءِ وَالصَّبْيَانِ. This hadith is recorded in Bukhari, which says the Prophet has prohibited us from harming children, elders, and women. So when in Islam, in jihad in Islam, in holy war, through military method, you can't harm any woman, any children, and any others whatsoever. And of course, you have the handicapped people also in this category. Fifth, behavior towards property and monuments. There is a special rule laid down how to behave with the monuments and with the houses, with the property of the people you are fighting with. You're not allowed to burn houses. When the Muslims went to Najran, which is Abyssinia at that time, to fight against the people there who were their enemies, the Prophet laid down and he instructed the army. He said, don't burn down their properties and their place of worship. And the people in Abyssinia, they were Christians, by the way, at the time. So he said, don't burn down the place of worship and their houses. And he said, he further ordered his commanders that even the fleas in the houses of the Jews were not to be touched. Now, I would like to give a reference here of an Orientalist scholar again, Adam Metz. He writes in Islamic civilization in the 4th century of the Hijrah, Islamic civilization in the 4th century. He writes that the Muslims showed a respect for churches. Now, this is what he writes. Pardon me, it's not what I said. He writes that Muslims showed a respect for churches which no European land in medieval times showed for mosques. And he's an Orientalist, he's a non-Muslim. And then Professor Gustave Le Bon from France, he writes that under Muslim rule in Spain, great Christian conferences were held in Seville and Cordoba, nor was any post under the government or any other job forbidden to Jews or Christians. So you see, in Islam, when there is an Islamic government, then Jews or Christians, they can be under employment of the government. They can take any job. Now from this you can derive automatically then when Muslims are going in war and they are fighting with other nations, then there are specific rulings that even their churches you can't harm them, and you can't destroy the property of the people, you can't burn them. And also, in short, Muslims armies were forbidden to cause the destruction of property, the burning of houses, the wasting of crops. Wasting of crops was also forbidden. And pastures. The filling of wells, the wells, you could not destroy the wells also. And you could not deprive the people from the food. And this method was obviously used in medieval times to make your army weak, to deprive them from the food sources. But in Islam, this was not allowed. Another ruling is you cannot attack the enemy in the night. You cannot attack the enemy in night because obviously they are not prepared. And Islam doesn't allow that. Even though they are your oppressors or you are fighting for self-defense, Islam doesn't allow that. It gives equal opportunity to all. Now, because of this, the students, because of these regulations laid down by Islamic law, the Muslim army under the commandment of Abu Ubaidah, when they entered the territory of Jordan, the Christians in Jordan of those parts, they sent a letter to the Muslims, which read as follows. Now, because of these rules and because of this behavior of the Muslims during war and then post-war, after war, The Christians in Jordan at that time, they sent a letter to the Muslims and they said, "Oh Muslims, you are preferable to the Byzantines for us. You're preferable to them for us, even though they are of the same creed as ourselves." And these Byzantines, they were Christians. So the people in Jordan, they were saying at that time that Muslims, you are preferable to us than those who are on the same creed. And why? Because you are more trustworthy, because you are more just, more kindly, and more beneficent to us. And because you don't plunder our houses. Now from this, what can we understand? We understand that Islam has set so many rules and regulations in jihad. And when people claim to follow Islam, they claim that this is jihad. And they kill innocent people in London, they kill innocent people in New York. They are doing something which is totally opposite to the Sharia, opposite to the Islamic law given by the Prophet Muhammad and the divine words of God. So these people who claim they are following Islam, in reality, they have nothing to do with Islam. So this is again a request. I request everybody, when you see people who claim, we're Muslims and we follow Islam, and these people are not following Islamic law, then take this for granted. They might be believers, they might believe in God, they might believe in Muhammad as a prophet, but their conduct is totally against Islam. They're not representing Islam. The problem in the West at the moment is, and this is why there is a clash of civilizations, again, because the majority, the Muslims, I would say, all of us, whatever we see on TV, on the media, whatever is portrayed to us, we take that as the true representation of Islam. But believe me, this is just maybe 1 or 2% of the whole Muslim population, which you see on the news. Al-Qaeda and all these organizations and all these people who claim to be Muslims. What is Islam? Islam is simply following the tradition of Prophet Muhammad. What is this tradition? The Prophet Muhammad, in his time, people used to, as you know, they used to swear at him and they used to torture him. And a very beautiful narration I would like to narrate here, just to tell you, this is just to let you know what is the spirit of Islam. The spirit of Islam obviously is given by the Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He used to walk down a street, and it was his way, it was his path. He had to go through that street, and he used to walk every day. And there was one lady, an old lady, she used to throw garbage on him, because she knew, that is Muhammad, and that is the one who is telling us people to leave our gods and to follow one God. And she used to throw garbage on him. And this would continue, and the Prophet didn't have any other choice, because he had to follow, there was no other road to go to his destination. So once he was walking through that, and nobody threw garbage on him. He knocked on the door of that old lady, and the old lady, she was shocked to see him. She was afraid. He's here now to take revenge. And the Prophet Muhammad, he said, I'm wondering, what is wrong? Is there anything wrong with you? Is your health okay? Because today, I haven't seen you. So this is the conduct of the Prophet Muhammad. Again, another thing. Prophet Muhammad was once walking. In that time, women didn't have any rights at all. Many people, when they had daughters, they would bury them alive. And they would, women were second-class citizens. So Prophet Muhammad was walking and he saw an old lady who had a lot of stuff with her, bags with her, and she could not carry the weight. And he took the bags from her. He said, "Let me do it." And she got surprised, because they were second-class citizens. They were like slaves. They have to find out, they have to do it themselves. So the Prophet Muhammad walked with her to her house. And once he entered her house, she was so happy and glad that somebody was actually helping her out. And she was surprised. She said, "Oh, my son," because he was young. He said, "Oh, young man, oh, my son, I would like to gift you something because of the nice behavior you've shown towards me, because you've helped me out. But I'm a poor woman.